All right, y'all. All right, y'all. And we are back. We are back. We are back. We're back. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and share this screen with you all so you can see it here. Apparently, there's some extortion that was going on. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this real quickly, everyone. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen right here. It says Sean Diddy Combs' accuser's lawyer sued over alleged extortion plot. Okay. And this just came up not too long, like 2 hours ago. This was just posted. Yes. Not too long ago. This was just posted. So it says November 19th, 2024, Tony Busby, a lawyer. Denying. Yeah. Had to switch microphones again. Let's see here. Back. Go back. Let me see. Right. I had to switch microphones again, y'all. Just a second. Hello? Okay, just making sure it's working. All right, let me go back to sharing my screen. Let's get back into it, y'all. All right, that's not what I wanted to share on. Let's go back to the lawsuit. Where is our lawsuit? Hold on. Okay, I think, okay, here we go. Right here. Yeah, I'm getting so confused right now trying to share this stuff. Okay, I think this is it right here. All right, so where were we? The legal action seeks compensation for extortion and emotional distress, with the plaintiff's lawyers requesting information about Busby from potential sources. In response to ABC News, Busby dismissed the lawsuit as meritless and laughable, denying any monetary demands or threats. He characterized his correspondence as standard legal practice. Recent court documents reveal prosecutors' allegations that Combs attempted to interfere with his case whilst in custody, including orchestrating social media campaigns and contacting witnesses through intermediaries. Prosecutors cited discovered jail cell notes with redacted content suggesting Combs compensated an unnamed witness who posted on Instagram. The government also alleges Combs used other inmates' telephone accounts at MDC Brooklyn to evade monitoring and contact unauthorized individuals. And that is that. Let's go on to, hopefully y'all can see this, the next one that we have. This was filed, I think, September 24th of this year. And this one is it says count one, racketeering conspiracy, the grand jury charges. Overview: for decades, Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, aka P Diddy, aka Diddy, um, Love. The defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees' resources and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Sean Combs, the defendant, operated his business headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles under a variety of United States-based corporate entities, including Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs Enterprises, and Combs Global, collectively the Combs Business. Corporate entities in the Combs Business included, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. At all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse toward women and other individuals. The abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. A part of his pattern of abuse, Combs manipulated women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of sexual activity with male commercial sex workers. At times, Combs and others acting at his direction made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. Combs ensured participation from the women by among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. Physical abuse by Sean Combs The defendant was recurrent and widely known on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years. Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or about March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman, and they're talking about Cassie, as she was attempting to leave. When a member of the hotel security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. Combs' violence was not limited to these women. It extended to his employees, witnesses, to his abuse, and others. Sean Combs, the defendant, used the Combs business, including certain employees, to carry out, facilitate, and cover up his abuse and commercial sex. Those employees, including security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors and other close associates, acted as Combs's intermediaries, and their conduct was facilitated and assisted by Combs' control of the Combs business. The Combs enterprise. From at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown were members and associates of a criminal organization, the Combs Enterprise or the Enterprise. Members and associates of the Combs Enterprise engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other activities, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for purposes of prostitution, coercion and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The Combs Enterprise, including its leadership, its members, and its associates, constituted an enterprise as defined by Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 1961, for that is a group of individuals associated. In fact, although not a legal entity, the Combs Enterprises consisted of blah, blah, blah. All right. Limited to Bad Boy Entertainment, Combs, blah, 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 blah. The Combs Enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of the Combs Enterprise and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. The Combs Enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Okay. The defendant was the leader of the Combs Enterprise. And it says he participated, all right, the defendant and others known and unknown participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of the Combs Enterprise affairs. These individuals included certain Combs business employees, such as members of Combs security staff, household staff, personal assistants, high-ranking supervisors, as well as other close associates of Combs. Purpose of the Combs Enterprise. Okay, operating a global business in the media, television, network media, blah, blah, blah. Preserving, protecting, promoting, enhancing the power, reputation, and brand of Sean Combs. Let's keep going. Enriching members and associates of the enterprise, including its leader, and in particular those who demonstrated loyalty to Combs and willingness to conceal his crimes. Preserving, protecting, promoting, and enhancing the power of the Combs Enterprise, including the power of its leader, Combs, through violence, use of firearms, threats of violence, coercion, and verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. Fulfilling the personal desires of Combs, particularly those related to Combs' sexual gratification, including through the exploitation of women and the use of commercial sex workers. I haven't seen anything about children in here yet. Enabling Combs and other members and associates of the Combs Enterprise to engage in unlawful acts of violence, including sexual violence, sex trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation, for purpose of prostitution, coercion, and enticement to engage in prostitution, narcotics distribution, and other crimes, and concealing the commission of such acts. Securing absolutely loyal from members of the Combs Enterprise, including through acts of violence and threats, and protecting the Combs enterprise and its members and associates, including Combs, from detection and prosecution by law enforcement authorities through acts of intimidation, manipulation, bribery, and threats of retaliation against individuals who witnessed the crimes committed by members and associates of the enterprise. Means and methods of the enterprise. Among the means and methods by which Sean Combs, the defendant, and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise conducted and participated in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise include the following. Combs and other members and associates of the Combs enterprise wielded the power and prestige of Combs' role at the Combs business to intimidate, threaten, and lure female victims into Combs' orbit, often under the pretense of a romantic relationship. Combs then used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sex acts with the male commercial sex workers that Combs referred to as, amongst other things, freak-offs. Freak-offs were elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. In arranging these freak-offs, Combs, with the assistance of members and associates of the Combs enterprise, transported and caused to be transported commercial sex workers across state lines and internationally. Freak-offs occurred regularly, sometimes lasted multiple days, and often involved multiple commercial sex workers. During freak-offs, Combs distributed a variety of controlled substances to victims, in part to keep the victims obedient and compliant. Sometimes, unbeknownst to the victims, Combs kept videos he filmed of victims engaging in sex acts with commercial sex workers. After freak-offs, Combs and the victims typically received IV fluids to recover from the physical exertion and drug use. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting, cleaning the hotel rooms after the freak-offs to try to mitigate room damage, arranging for travel for victims, commercial sex workers, and Combs to and from freak-offs, resupplying Combs with requested supplies, delivering large sums of cash to Combs to pay the commercial sex workers, and scheduling the delivery of IV fluids. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, law enforcement seized freak-off supplies, including narcotics and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs. Combs maintained control over his victims through, among other things, physical violence, promises of career advancement opportunities, granting and threatening to withhold financial support, and by other coercive means including trafficking their whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records. Cassie talked about that in her lawsuit, controlling their housing, Cassie again, and supplying them with controlled substances, Cassie again. During and separate from freak-offs, Combs, among other things, hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims at times by the hair. We saw him do Cassie that way. These assaults often resulted in injuries that took days or weeks to heal. Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. Victims believed they could not refuse Combs' demands without risking their financial or job security or without repercussions in the form of physical or emotional abuse. Combs also used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including Combs's security personnel, at times carried firearms. On more than one occasion, Combs himself carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten others, including victims of and witnesses to his abuse. In or about March 2024, during searches of Combs' residences in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California, Law enforcement seized firearms and ammunition, including three AR-15s with defaced serial numbers, as well as a drum magazine. AR-15s, you all, with defaced serial numbers, as well as a drum magazine. Interesting. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise enabled Combs control over victims by following his directions regarding financial payments to victims, advancing or suppressing the victim's career opportunities, and acquiring the controlled substances Combs used to keep the victims compliant. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise at times witnessed Combs's violence toward the victims or the victims' injuries caused by Combs without intervening. Instead, members and associates of the Combs enterprise helped conceal the violence and abuse by, among other things, assisting Combs in monitoring and preventing victims from leaving locations such as hotels or Combs's residence. Sounds like Cassie again. These occasions included instances in which a victim was required to remain in hiding, sometimes for several days at a time, to recover from injuries Combs inflicted without being publicly observed. Members and associates of the Combs enterprise also assisted Combs in locating and contacting victims who attempted to flee his abuse. Sounds like Cassie again. Potentially, that was Kim Porter. We witnessed that in her book. And also that girl Gina that did the Tasha K interview. She talked about this as well. So it sounds like those are the three that we could say, but I don't know who filed a lawsuit against him besides Cassie. And I think it was one other person. And I don't know if she went through this. So let's continue reading on, y'all. When employees, witnesses to his abuse, or others threatened Combs's authority or reputation, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise engaged in acts of violence, threats of financial and reputational harm, and verbal abuse. These acts of violence included kidnapping and arson. So what did he set on fire, or who did he set on fire? Because they mentioned arson earlier. I knew he blew up Kid Cudi's car. In addition, on multiple occasions, Combs threw both objects and people, as well as hit, dragged, choked, and shoved others. Threw people. So he threw somebody. Because Kim Porter said that he slammed her. When Combs' authority or reputation was threatened by the possibility of negative publicity or legal or law enforcement action against him, including in or about late 2023, following public allegations of Combs's crimes, Combs and members and associates of the enterprise pressured witnesses and victims, including through attempted bribery, to stay silent and not report what they experienced or knew to law enforcement. On phone calls, Combs and other members and associates of the enterprise, among other things, provided these victims and witnesses with the false narrative of events in an event to conceal Combs's crimes. Combs caused these calls to be recorded on at least two occasions. The racketeering conspiracy. From at least in or about 2008 through on or about the date of the filing of this indictment at the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown, being persons employed by and associated with Combs Enterprise, described in paragraphs 6 through 12 of this indictment, and enterprise engaged in an activities of which affected interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States, to wit, Title 18, United States Code, Section 1962C. That is, to conduct and participate directly and indirectly in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, as that term is defined in Title 18, consisting of multiple acts involving kidnapping, chargeable under the following provisions of state law and California Penal Code 207, aiding and abetting, all right, conspiracy. It says attempt, multiple acts involving arson, chargeable under the following provisions of state code, penal code, arson, blah, 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 blah. Multiple acts involving bribery, chargeable under the following provisions. Acts of indictable. Oh, I'm sorry. Multiple acts indictable under Title 18. My apologies, y'all. Relating to tampering with a witness, victim, or an informant. Multiple acts indictable under Title 18. Related to forced labor. Multiple acts indictable under Title 18. Related to sex trafficking. What else do they have? Related to transportation and inducement to travel for purposes of prostitution and other illegal sexual activities. Multiple offenses involving the possession with intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances, including cocaine, oxycodone, um, alpraz- alprazolam, methylendiox, some type of methamphetamine, another something gamma hydroxybutyric acid, and ketamine. All right. So, he definitely had connections to somebody to get him this stuff. Distribution and possession with intent to distribute and conspiracy to do the same, aiding, abetting, and willfully causing. It was part of the conspiracy that Sean Combs, the defendant, agreed that a conspirator would commit at least two acts of racketeering activity in the conduct of the affairs of the Combs enterprise from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere as part of this agreement to conduct and participate in the conduct of the affairs of Combs Enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. Sean Combs, the defendant, agreed to and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, advertise, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person, knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that the means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion as described in Title 18 and any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in a commercial sex act in violation of Title 18. All right, the grand jury for the charges from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York. Elsewhere, Sean Combs, the defendant in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, advertised, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that the means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion as described, blah, 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 blah. All right, to engage in commercial. All right, so they're saying the same thing over and over and over again. Count three, transportation to engage in prostitution. All right, forfeiture allegations. What are they trying to say here? Any and all interest the defendant acquired maintain a violation. Property and real property involved in the use to intend to be used to commit or facilitate the commission of said offense. They're talking about him using his property and real and personal constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of said offense, including but not limited to a sum of money in the United States currency representing the amount of property involved in said offense and proceeds traceable to the commission of said offense, blah, blah, blah. Substitute assets provision cannot, okay, if any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission of the defendant cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third person, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially diminished in value, or has been commingled with other property which cannot be subdivided without difficulty. It is the intent of the United States to, what are they going to do? To seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. Okay. Damian Williams, United States Attorney. So they do not want him diminishing any property, meaning damaging. You don't want to damage any property. You don't want to, they don't want it commingled and all of that type of stuff. And they don't want it to be beyond the jurisdiction of the court. Don't transfer it or sell it or try to put it into the hands of a third party or third person. So basically, this is the sealed indictment for Sean Combs, United States of America versus Sean Combs, y'all, in the Southern District of New York. So that's count one. He's facing count one. Was there a count? I thought he had like 3 counts on here. Special sentencing counter, special sentencing factor, and then he has a count 2 and count 3. Looks like he's facing 3 counts. Okay, forfeiture allegations. So that is that, y'all. That is the latest on P. Diddy. I will be back on later to discuss this in more detail. Signing out, you all. Until next time, you all take care.